Michigan is known as the automotive capital of the world. With the 2014 North American International Auto Show now behind us, what are some of the trends we'll be seeing for this year? Hello and thanks for joining us. I'm Laurel Hess and this is Comcast Newsmakers. Joining me now is Jason Stein, the editor of Automotive News. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here, Laurel.
I'm sure you spent many days and many hours overseeing and checking out everything at the auto show this year. Were there any big wow moments, or what did you walk away with from that show and say, this is going to be the big new thing this year? Well,
I mean, besides the buzz being back, because, I mean, let's remember that 5 years ago, it was carpet and cars at Cobo Hall. I mean, the automakers, the Detroit automakers were coming out of bankruptcy. There was a lot of issues with sustainability. Would they survive? 5 years later, what a different picture. The big thing for us is product. The fact that these companies are coming with a ton of great product. When you look at the introduction of the Ford F-150, which has an aluminum, huge aluminum component to it, was the buzz of the show. There's no question. And, Chrysler is coming back with great product that they have, the new Chrysler 200, and GM has GMCs, Cadillacs, everything else that's now fitting into a premium space. They've elevated their game a little bit. So the Detroit auto companies have really come back from what was a near-death experience. And now you see it on the show floor.
And all this talk of, the foreign auto companies taking over, it seems to be we're able to get over that fear and have some fun. There was a lot of fun, new technology and really new interesting things that came out of this show.
Yeah, and I mentioned the Ford F-150. So what Ford did with its aluminum, major aluminum componentry that was on the truck, is it set the bar for a whole new way of looking at vehicles, a whole new way of MPG, a whole new way of getting more mileage out of your truck, which is something that will affect the industry going forward. That's a huge fun factor. That's a huge change factor, frankly. To have a Detroit auto company go in there 5 years after the carnage of what happened in 08 and 09 and really set the bar on some new technology going forward was phenomenal. But there are a lot of other things here too. Connectivity is huge, and the consumer wants to be connected with all of their other devices on a regular basis, their smartphone, Bluetooth, music, and everything else. And car companies are responding by adding more of that technology into vehicles on a regular basis, making it more seamless, making it more efficient, and making it fun for the consumer to transition from their personal lives outside of the car into the car, and doing it safely, by the way.
So really it sounds like responding to consumer demand, which
Yes.
is great. The big buzz that the local media were reporting on were these new cars that were going to drive themselves. It sounds like that's no longer something in the faraway future that's happening.
Yeah, it's not. Autonomous driving is already here to some extent. When you look at what Mercedes-Benz introduced last year with the new S-Class, it's got enough technology on there to drive itself to some extent anyway. Not literally, but when you look at lane departure systems and all kinds of technology that allow the vehicle to be a smart vehicle on the road, you've got a lot of that technology already there, but more are coming. And Volvo introduced something at last year's Frankfurt show that essentially said that, with a push of a button, that their vehicle can take over the road for a limited amount of time. You'll see more of that coming. Audi's been working on that. Mercedes is working on more advanced systems. So autonomous driving will get here, but the question is whether or not the infrastructure is ready, whether the other vehicles on the road are ready to handle autonomous driving cars and non-autonomous driving cars. There's a lot of things to work out there, but they will be worked out. The point is that the future is closer than we really imagined when you look at autonomy.
You mentioned the auto show just visually and product-wise, much bigger, better than it was 5 years ago. That must be a direct reflection of the fact that the U.S. automakers are doing a lot better than they were 5 years
hugely.
ago.
I mean, they're profitable, they're investing more money into product, their balance sheets have been clean. This is a whole new game, and everybody now is almost at the same level. And interesting when you look at not only the American car companies, but the international car companies, and how product is starting to diverge, how segments are shifting. Last year, a Mercedes introduced a $29,000 CLA. They can't make enough of them. It is so popular. BMW responded with a $30,000 vehicle, and at this year's show, Kia and Hyundai came out with two vehicles that are now up north of $40,000 and $50,000. So you see all kinds of car companies moving into all kinds of new segments that you never would have imagined before. And what it's doing is it's creating opportunities for the consumer to really have more choice than they ever have before, with product that's great quality, interesting design, great technology, and price points that are frankly, reasonable for everybody, because money is so cheap, cash is still available. there could be a warning sign there, by the way. We're seeing a lot of longer-term loans, 70, 80, 90-month loans.
Well, we want to make sure, and somebody out there in finance at these automotive companies hopefully is doing that we don't end up in the same situation because, you know, let's face it, giving loans to people who probably had no business having them in the first place is a big reason the automotive industries ended up where they were.
Yeah, and we're watching to see whether or not there's a bubble there as well. You know, a bubble in the car industry the way there was a bubble in the housing industry. Are people being overextended? We are seeing that loan terms are getting a lot longer. Money is still incredibly cheap, right? So will that be an issue going forward? Will that be an issue that you have consumers overextending themselves into vehicles where transaction prices have risen considerably? Last year, there were record transaction levels. So, you know, we're in a safe area here so far. The products have been good. The sales rate has come back strong. Will that sales rate continue? And will inventory start piling up? Because that's where incentives started to get poured on, 4 or 5 years ago. Incentive spending was a huge concern. We've seen a bit of a tick up of that in the first quarter this year.
Do we even care about the price of gas anymore? I mean, that's all we heard about when it was $4, maybe $5 a gallon, and that seems like forever ago now. Things have sort of moderated, and we hear less and less talk about, fuel cells being the wave of the future. Yeah,
when you see, the price of unleaded at $3.50 a gallon, this is not where some car companies placed their bets a few years ago. Fiat brought in a Fiat 500. A Fiat 500 at $3.50 to $4 a gallon doesn't make as much sense as it did at $6 a gallon. But the price of fuel hasn't risen. So demand for those vehicles in markets that are not Miami or not Austin or not New York City, where they might make a little bit more sense, where they're a little more trendy, a little more chic, demand has fallen. And we've seen that in other parts of the country related to EVs and hybrids. We haven't really seen the sales rate that we thought. But those product decisions are made so far in advance that now you have a hybrid sitting on showroom lots everywhere because they had to be there.
And we're talking about, I know some of the automotives discontinuing some of those electric and hybrid vehicles. But the good news is, it's true, is it not, that selling an SUV is a lot more profitable for a car company, a car dealership, than selling a little fuel-efficient vehicle. So if they're still able to do that, then that's better for all of us.
Absolutely huge. Profitability on the truck side, profitability on the SUVs. Crossovers have been huge. If you're in the market for a vehicle these days, chances are you're considering a crossover first, not necessarily a sedan. That's equating into higher profits. It's equating into a better bottom line for these automakers that can now offer an array of options. But when you see Jaguar entering into the crossover market, you know that the landscape has shifted, really.
It sounds like, though, the U.S. automakers are now, again, competing on a level playing field with some of the foreign competition, when in years past we've heard so much about, the new trends and technology was really being driven by the foreign automakers. Yeah,
what Cadillac has done, for example, with its Q infotainment system is really try to go after some of those other premium car makers. And, frankly, that has as much technology as anything else and is a top consideration, when it comes to the consumer and what they're looking for. You don't have to just go to a premium car company now in order to get the kind of, facets that you would expect.
All right, good news, good news, good news. It's great to hear it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Jason, thank you again. Coming up next, we will hear from Matt Roush. He is the editor of the WWJ Technology Report. He'll be joining us to talk about technology in cars. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
You know you can talk to me, right?
You can tell me if something's wrong.
If you need help.
If you need hope, tell someone.
If you don't know who to talk to.
If you're being bullied.
Or if you're scared to come to school.
Tell someone.
It's okay to tell someone.
There's a lot of us who want to help.
If you tell me,
I can help.
The auto industry is always bringing new technology to consumers, whether it's for safety, entertainment, or for innovation. What things will be a reality in 2014 and in the near future? In addition, how safe are we staying when it comes to technology in our vehicles? Joining me now is Matt Roush, the editor of the WWJ Technology Report, to talk about all of those things. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
So there's all kinds of cool things going on, and it's all in development and really cool technology. But What really will we see perhaps later this year and into next year, new cool stuff that will make it into our cars?
Well, they're working now and developing software that will help the apps in your smartphone or your tablet talk to your car so that you can enjoy those apps sort of on the dashboard of the car. And what we're seeing more...
Flappy Birds?
Well, maybe, but you have to be stopped. Yeah, the car has to be in park, you know, for that to happen. That's another major issue we can get into is driver distraction. But a lot of these car makers are now going to essentially instrument panels that are a long TV. Essentially, it's a 3-foot long, 1-foot high television. And when you turn the car on, you can configure it however you like so that it will show you whatever information you want it to within probably some basic federal safety guidelines, like it has to show you how fast you're going and, you know, how much fuel you have, that kind of thing. But you're going to have video screens around the car displaying information rather than, you know, traditional gauges in many vehicles. And it's going to be able to bring those apps from your smartphone into your car so that you'll have instant weather radar, traffic ahead, those sorts of things. It's really useful stuff for drivers, and that's all coming in just the next few years probably, because that stuff's at the trade shows now.
And we'll begin to see that in some of the high-end luxury vehicles, but
Yes.
hopefully over the years, as they work and they're perfected, they'll trickle down into a vehicle I can afford?
Yeah, well, just like anti-lock brakes, just like traction control, just like a lot of these things, it's going to start out being a high-end vehicle draw and then gradually work its way into you know, the mass market segment. The other thing that's really interesting that's happening right now is the whole idea of autonomous and connected vehicles. There's a major study going on right now in Ann Arbor, federally funded, where you have hundreds of vehicles equipped with essentially short-range radios, so that if one of those cars hits a patch of ice or if there's a big pothole, which is certainly something we can relate to now, this car will send out an alert, and any vehicle within 1,000 to 1,500 feet around it will pick up the location of the problem and what the problem is, and there will be some kind of warning display on the dashboard, maybe some kind of audible tone, something like that. I mean, a lot of these details have yet to be worked out. That's a little bit farther off, maybe 10, 12, 15 years off, but connected vehicles is another thing that's on the horizon.
While the automakers are spending a lot of time and money and energy developing all this cool technology and stuff to make our vehicles safer, are they forgetting that there's a mandate out there that the MPG in our vehicles has to be 54 miles per gallon by 2025? Are we thinking about that? Are we headed in that direction?
Yeah, oh yeah. They're developing billions of R&D. They're devoting billions of R&D to that right now. There's two major ways you can do that. You can make the powertrain more efficient, or you can make the vehicle lighter so that it requires less fuel to move it. Both of those efforts are underway now, and in fact, we just heard this week that the Detroit area is getting a $140 million lightweight metals research institute that's going to be based in Canton Township and involve Wayne State, Michigan, and a whole bunch of industry partners. There are ways to make the vehicle, it's estimated, 30 to 40% lighter and have it still be just as strong as it is now. The other end of the equation is the power plant. You're seeing vehicles now with just these tiny little displacement. I mean, what we would have laughed at before in terms of cubic inches, you know, a 1-liter car, you know, that's a tiny little engine, but it operates now at such high RPM, and they use turbocharging and boosters and that sort of thing. And those tiny little engines produce a fair amount of horsepower now at very good MPG. Then there's also the whole idea of hybrid and electric vehicles. You've got Tesla talking about a $5 billion battery plant somewhere, which could change the game for electric cars, all electric cars.
I've heard this somewhere before. Fuel cells are going to change the game for the future. And so how do we really know? Doesn't it all depend on gas prices and if we stick to this 2025 mandate? And what's going to really emerge as the big winner, and how can you win when you got a plan now?
Well, it's going to be an and future rather than an or future. I think there's not going to be any one particular technology that's going to win. There's going to be a variety of technologies available because we need all of them to meet that MPG goal. And I mean, it may be extended a little bit, but I still think there's a national effort behind really getting our vehicles to be that efficient. And so you're going to see gasoline internal combustion engines. You're going to see diesel internal combustion engines. Clean diesel's much more popular in Europe than it is here, and I think a little bit of that is going to make its way across the Atlantic. You're going to see hybrid vehicles, and that includes a whole spectrum of hybrid vehicles with vehicles with just slightly more powerful batteries so that the engine stops and the air conditioner keeps running when you're stopped at a stop sign, to full hybrids like we traditionally think of hybrids like a Prius or the Ford hybrid vehicles where the electric motor runs the car until you get up to about 40 miles an hour. And then you're going to see electric cars. I think you're going to see all of these technologies, and it's going to depend on what you want. It's like cars will always be. It depends, what you want to spend and how fast you want to go and how much style you want, and there will be a variety of choices within those parameters.
Is there any one automaker or one segment of vehicle that's sort of leading the charge, leading the way when it comes to safety, technology, cool innovations, foreign automakers versus U.S.? How do they all compare?
I think the U.S. automakers obviously have taken great strides in quality these past few years, although, as we've seen from Toyota and now General Motors, no one is immune from the occasional serious quality problem. But I think, what I see is a whole bunch of really smart people. Here in the Detroit area, we have more engineers per capita than any place else in the world working on all of these problems. And you have international automakers also here. You have the Toyota Technical Center in Ann Arbor. You have, technical centers from other foreign automakers here as well. And, they're all working towards these things. I don't think anyone is really head and shoulders above the rest right now. Although I do have to say there's a lot of buzz in the media, at least, about Tesla and what they have been able to do with an electric vehicle. Now it's at a high price point. It's a $100,000 car, although they're talking about, I guess, a $40,000 or $60,000 one, and $40,000 isn't really out of the realm of possibility for most people these days. I mean, what's the average now? Somewhere in the upper 20s, right? So that's essentially where the industry is at this point. And I think it's the most exciting time for the car business since Henry Ford. I really do, because there's so many things happening at once between infotainment and bringing the internet into your car, connected vehicles, autonomous vehicles, and all these advanced powertrains. It's a fascinating industry right now.
It really just seemed with the technology alone, just take everything else out of it, that we've, just like computers and our cell phones, that everything's changing so quickly, and it is extremely exciting time. And if my car can work as good as my cell phone,
okay,
then we'll be there.
They're working on it.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you.
Coming up next, we will speak with Sherry Muir-Irwin, the president of the Automotive Women's Alliance. Stick with us.
You know you can talk to me, right?
You can tell me if something's wrong.
If you need help.
If you need hope, tell someone.
If you don't know who to talk to.
If you're being bullied,
Or if you're scared to come to school.
Tell someone.
It's okay to tell someone.
There's a lot of us who want to help.
If you tell me.
I can help.
In January of this year, General Motors announced that it had named Mary Barra as the company's chief executive officer. She is the very first CEO, female CEO, in the company's history. Will this move by GM pave the way for other women in the industry? Will we see more women in executive level positions than we have in the past? Joining me now to answer all of those questions is Sherry Muir-Irwin, the president of the Automotive Women's Alliance Foundation and a partner with the Hunter Group. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Laurel. Appreciate it.
How significant was it? How big of a deal was it when General Motors announced their new CEO was going to be a woman?
Huge, huge. Can't overstate that enough. It wasn't just a woman. It was Mary Barra, and we knew from her background with GM, wonderfully qualified, had the experience, had the skill, had the education, had put in the time and the tough assignments. She was not only a woman, she was a very qualified woman for that role.
And realistically, does that mean anything? What does that mean to other women in the industry, whether they're top executives or engineers, working at a lower level?
And I might add, or young girls in school looking at where can I go with my life and my career. It meant tremendous things. The main thing being it can be done. It can be done with the right background and experience and skill and the right circumstances and opportunities. It can be achieved, the top, the pinnacle.
What are the trends as far as other women in the industry, the number of women entering the industry, perhaps the compensation levels of women versus men these days, and still the struggle with retaining women once they're in the industry doing well, and then for various reasons, usually family related, deciding to exit the industry?
Yeah, a lot of good points that you bring up in that statement, Laurel. First of all, I think in terms of what we're seeing in coming into the industry, women are coming into the industry. The key is retaining women in the industry, but I think retaining and attracting women with the technical background and having the technical skills that are going to be required really going forward in not only the automotive industry, but so many industries right now is going to be key for success. As far as women entering and then leaving because of family, personal pressures, that's always been a real challenge for the industry, not only automotive, but again, I draw a wide range in terms of industries affected by that. It comes down to really trying to balance the personal life and the work life, which in talking with so many high-level executives in the automotive industry, I've had the opportunity to do so. And their thought is you really never can totally balance it. At certain weeks you put in 110% into the job. Other weeks you might be able to slip away for a 3 p.m. soccer game for your daughter and see it. But in the end, you hope it all evens out. But it is going to be an ongoing challenge. And one woman did tell me a key to that is having the right partner.
That helps. A support system in general, the right partner, the right boss, the right co-workers, just having that all kind of in place.
Absolutely. The support system, both personally and professionally, having the right mentors that are going to be able to, and whether it's another female executive, whether it's a male executive, having someone there to help not just show you the ropes, but help you direct your career and punch those tickets that you need punched to qualify you and get you to the point where you have the requirements, you have the background to be considered for these key roles.
Your organization, the Automotive Women's Alliance Foundation, sort of helps women, young women, early by providing scholarships, guidance, camaraderie, if you will, to put women in the auto industry and help to keep them there.
Absolutely. A support system. Our mission is to empower and advance women in the automotive industry. And not just women already there, but women who are aspiring to be there. And we've given almost $200,000 in scholarships since AWAF was formed as a 501c3 corporation back in 2001. And we're looking to break that $200,000 mark this year.
How important is it to, I mean, you know, we make this goal to have more women, but why? Why is diversity in the workforce, having, you know, just not diverse cultures and backgrounds, but when it comes to gender as well, how is that helpful?
Yeah, well, I think there have been so many studies that have shown that companies are more successful when their leadership, when their workforce reflects their markets and reflects the people in society that are buying their products, buying their services. And having that diverse leadership team, that diverse workforce, brings in all of the various experiences and knowledge and skill from a variety of individuals, male, female, black, white, no matter what the diversity quotient is. That is going to make an organization much more successful, much more powerful. We can look at so many examples through history where companies have failed because everyone was in lockstep going down the same path, no diverse thinking, no new thought, no one there to rattle the cage and bring in new ideas.
How does the general state of the auto industry affect the opportunities that may or may not be available for women? Things were pretty tough, as we saw some of the U.S. automakers going into bankruptcy 3, 4, 5 years ago. Now we really seem to be on an upswing. The state of the industry is doing so much better in general. Is that good news for women?
Oh yeah, no question. It's good news for everybody. Back in 2009, 2008, they were dark times. We all remember those, and we don't want to go back. But I think the health of the industry is good for women, for men, for young people aspiring to get into some cool areas. That's one of our challenges, and it's not just for women, it's for men as well. Young men, young women coming out of college. How do we attract them? How do we get them into the industry, and how do we retain them when we're coming up against companies like Google and Microsoft and Yahoo?
If you're a young woman today, middle schooler, high schooler, you're interested in tech, engineering, what should you be doing now to set yourself up for success?
Well, I think you hit it on the head. If you're interested in tech, you're interested in engineering, look at the schools that really have strong programs in those areas. You want to pursue those programs, you want to pursue those schools. Look at getting internships. And that, in fact, at AWAF, we have a very strong scholarship program, as I mentioned. We're looking at taking that to the next step and connecting that with internships and possibly even full-time positions down the road.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Laurel.
Thank you to Sherry, and also to all of our guests who joined us today for this very special edition of Comcast Newsmakers. Until next time, have a great day, and thank you for joining us.